Alright, this video is going to cover the three math statements that you're going to be using in Math 7. I'm going to be going through this real quick, so make sure you pause, do screenshots, or whatever you need to do, or watch it again. So the three math statements are expressions, equations, and inequalities. Now we're going to talk about each of them in this presentation. So expressions are terms and operations. We'll talk about what terms are, but operations are multiply, divide, subtract, and add. Equations are statements of balance. It means one side is equal to another side. Inequalities are statements of imbalance. A statement of imbalance. That's where you can say one side's greater than the other or less than another side. So an example of an expression is 4n minus 7 plus m. An example of an equation is going to be 5m plus 3 equals negative 2. And an example of an inequality is going to be 3 is less than negative 6 times a. We're going to go into more detail on why it's called each of these, but this is the quick visual right now. For expressions, you can evaluate expressions, which means you substitute in the numbers and simplify it down to one number. So evaluate means you plug in for n, plug in for m, and work it out. Now we don't know what n and m are, so we can't do much with this expression right now. Equations, you solve equations. You solve for m. You do your subtract 3, divide by 5. And when you do that, you're going to have one solution. Only one solution. For inequalities, you solve inequalities, and when you work it out, there's going to be an infinite amount of solutions. You work out to something that's greater than less than something, and there's more than one answer. There's more than one solution. Actually, there's infinite solutions. We're mainly going to focus on this top part and understand what terms are and things like that. Expressions, terms and operations. So expressions, this is an expression. If you were to read this to yourself, this would read as 4 times n minus 7 plus m. You might hear people say 4n, and that's fine, but just be aware that that really means 4 times whatever n is. So there are 3 terms in this expression, and we're going to list those terms right now. Your 3 terms, the first one is 4n. And that means 4 times a number. Now that 4 is known as a coefficient times a variable. The next term is going to be that negative 7. When reading the whole statement, it becomes 4n minus 7, but when it's by itself, you think of it as negative 7. And that's known as a constant. A number by itself is a constant. And then you have this last term here, which is m, and that's a variable that's by itself. Next, we have equations. Equations are statements of balance, a statement of balance. So we have 5m plus 3 equals negative 2. The official way to say that would be 5 times m plus 3 equals negative 2. This equation has 3 terms. The reason we know it's an equation is because of the equal sign. So now let's talk about those 3 terms. So the first term is that 5 times m. And that's a coefficient times the variable. The next term we have is that plus 3, which would be just considered a 3. If the plus sign's in front of it, you don't really need it when you're talking about individual terms. And that's just a constant by itself. Then you have this negative 2 by itself. You do need to remember to bring the negative sign in front of it, and that's also a constant. So there's your equation with 3 terms. Next, we're going to talk about inequalities, statement of imbalance. So this would be read as 3 is less than negative 6a, or 3 is less than negative 6 times a. And this inequality has 2 terms. It's an inequality because it has the inequality sign. It's a statement of imbalance. This side's less than this side. So the terms are the 3, which is a constant by itself. And then you have that negative 6a, which is a term, which is going to be your coefficient times the variable again. So let's do some vocabulary review here. So this statement type, we can figure out what kind of statement is by looking at the inequality sign. This would be an inequality. The terms in this, there are 3 terms, and the terms are negative 4m, 3, and 2n. The constants in this problem, well, there's only one constant, and that's the 3. The coefficients in this problem, the things multiplying by variables, are the negative 4 and the 2. And then finally, the variables in this problem are the m and the n. So just making sure you understand what all of these things are and what they mean. We'll talk more about solving them in another video. So this statement type, I don't see an equal sign, I don't see an inequality sign. This statement type is going to be an expression. Now the terms in this expression are going to be these 4 items. I've got an 8, a 6n, a negative 4, and an r. So those are your 4 terms. Constants, I see 2 constants. I see the 8 and I see the negative 4. Coefficients, I see, this is a little tricky because most kids understand that there's a 6 there attached to the n. But do you understand over here how many r's do you see? You only see 1 r. So that means your coefficients are 6 and 1. Finally, your variables are the letters, and that's n and r. Moving on. So this statement type is going to be an equation. I see an equal sign, it's an equation. The terms in this, there are 4 terms in this equation. I see the 8m, the negative 9, the 5, and the negative n. The constants in this problem, I see 2 of them. I see a negative 9 and a 5. The coefficients are going to be the numbers that are multiplying by the variables. Once again, I only see an n here by itself. We could think of a little 1 in front of it, and in this case, you're going to need to realize that you could consider that coefficient as a negative 1. And then your variables are m and n again. So we're moving on to another part. We've got some vocabulary review. So this blank has how many terms? So we're just picking some words from the bottom. I see an equal sign, therefore I'm going to say that this statement would be an equation, and it has 3 terms. Had some fun with animation here. All right, so this statement here, we've got this 9 plus 2n. We would consider this statement to be an expression, and it has 2 terms. This final statement here, I see this inequality sign, that's going to be an inequality. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. And there you go. That's about it for this. There will be deeper lessons on how to solve inequalities and equations, and also how to evaluate expressions, but this is a quick review of the vocabulary. I hope it helps. Best of luck to you.